The Magic School Bus Gets Cold Feet, written by Joanna Cole and illustrated by Degen, Part 2. From inside the busigator, we heard a loud splash. "We did it!" Wanda cried. "We're in." "But where exactly are we?" Ralphie asked. We looked outside of the busigator's front windows. We were in a pool of water near a waterfall. An island filled with shade trees and plants sat just a few feet away. Around the busigator, all kinds of reptiles are crawling, including alligators. "How do we get out of here?" Ralphie asked. "We can't go out there," Arnold said nervously. "Those are real snakes and alligators crawling around." "We can't find Liz by staying here," Wanda pointed out. "If we become reptiles ourselves, we can look for Liz without that guy in white bothering us," Keisha suggested. Miss Frizzle smiled. "Good thinking, Keisha." She walked over to a strange machine built into the bus. It was covered with buttons and flashing lights. "Kids, meet the reptile later," the Frizz said. "It'll turn us into reptiles in no time." Miss Frizzle, maybe I should stay behind and keep an eye on the busigator." "I'll stay with you, Arnold." Miss Frizzle pulled a lever. In a flash, we all turned into reptiles, except for Arnold and Dorothy Ann. And Carl was a speckled caiman. Tim was a gecko. Keisha was a garter snake. Wanda was a chameleon. Ralphie was a turtle. And Miss Frizzle was a frilled lizard. "I'm cold," Ralphie said, sticking his head inside the shell. "To get warm, we have to move to a warmer place," Carlos suggested. "Let's try that heat lamp over there." We all crawled into the lamp. "It's nice and warm here," Tim said. "I guess to feel the heat, you have to find the heat." To a reptile, location is everything. Meanwhile, Phoebe was trying to find Liz on her own. She checked the kitchen, just in case the man in white was trying to cook Liz for dinner. Phoebe didn't find Liz, but she did find a weird menu. The lizards get just one meal a week? Phoebe couldn't believe what she was reading. And the alligators get only one meal a month. How inhumane! What kind of place is this? While Phoebe checked out the kitchen, we crawled into the boiler room. "It really is boiling in here," Tim said. "So how come I'm not sweating like I usually do when I'm hot?" "Sweat glands? None," Wanda said. "That's what it said on the scroll, so I bet reptiles can't sweat to cool down." Ralphie stuck his head out of his shell. "If you have to find heat to feel warm, maybe you have to find cold to cool down," he said. Miss Frizzle pushed the water bucket towards us. Keisha slithered over to the bucket and stuck her tail in the cold water. "Wow, I can feel my temperature dropping already," she exclaimed. Everyone crawled towards the bucket, except for Wanda. "We're more worried about staying the right temperature than we are about finding Liz," Wanda said. "Let's get moving." Back at the busigator, Arnold and Dorothy Ann were freezing. "Let's move the busigator to where it's warmer," Dorothy Ann chattered. But the bus wouldn't budge. Arnold and Dorothy Ann left the busigator and tried to push the heat lamp towards it. They didn't go far before Arnold noticed they were being followed by a swarm of reptiles. "Maybe they're upset because we took their heat." "Forget the heat, let's get back to the bus." After Miss Frizzle and we left the boiler room, we crawled into another room. It was cold, very cold. Reptiles were sleeping in glass drawers. A green lizard was curled up in one of them. "It's Liz!" everyone cried. "She's barely breathing," Tim noticed. Keisha put her head near Liz's chest. "I can't hear her heartbeat." "Liz, snap out of it! What are we going to do?" "Wake up, Liz!" Wanda cried. Ralphie stared at Liz. "She's not sleeping. It looks like she's frozen." "There's one thing I don't get," Keisha said. "If it feels so cold, how come I'm not shivering?" "Reptiles can't shiver," Wanda said. "Shivering is just something people do to get warm. When reptiles get really cold, their bodies just slow way down. I'm slowing down too." "Slowing down? Isn't that like hibernation?" Keisha asked. "Exactly," Miss Frizzle said sleepily. We were getting sleepier and sleepier when Phoebe walked in. "When did you guys become reptiles?" she gasped. Wanda raised her head. "Phoebe, hibernate Liz. Take her someplace warm." Phoebe grabbed Liz, Miss Frizzle, and the rest of the class in her arms. "I'll save you all from this dangerous place," she said. Phoebe raced out of the cold room. As she warmed up in Phoebe's arms, Liz started to wake up. Soon we ran into the busigator in a reptile habitat. Wanda looked inside the bus. "Arnold, D.A., get us out of here." "We can't," Arnold said. "The bus is so cold it stopped working." Ralphie groaned. "If we don't get the bus moving, we could be reptiles for the rest of our lives." Liz jumped out of Phoebe's arms and crawled to a nearby heat lamp. A bunch of other reptiles were there too. "Look at Liz," Carlos said. "She doesn't look cold anymore, she looks happy." "If we get to the bus where it's warmer, it'll start working again," Wanda said. "I can do that," Phoebe said. We climbed into the bus and Phoebe pulled it towards the lamp. "You can do it, Phoebe." With Phoebe's help, we made it to the heat lamp. The busigator warmed up and it pretty soon was moving again. We followed Phoebe outside. We were free. Suddenly, a pile of nearby rocks started moving, but they weren't rocks, they were alligators. "Do something, Miss Frizzle," Phoebe yelled. The Frizz pulled on some more levers, and soon we all turned back into kids again. The busigator changed back into the size of a regular bus, but now it was a giant lizard. Phoebe climbed aboard. Just as we were about to escape over the fence, the strange man in white came running after us. He carried something covered by a sheet. "You forgot something," he said, pulling off the sheet. "Liz's habitat," we cried. Miss Frizzle shook his hand. "Thanks, Harry." "You know him?" Phoebe asked. "Harry Herbst is the one who built Liz's habitat," Miss Frizzle said. "It just needed a few repairs." "I run Herb Haven," Harry added. "It is a luxury spa and restful resort for weary, worn-out reptiles." "So you weren't going to stuff Liz?" Arnold asked. Harry laughed. "Hardly, but we did make sure she had enough to eat." It wasn't difficult because reptiles often go for weeks without eating. "Miss Frizzle, why didn't you tell us this was a good place to be?" Phoebe asked. The Frizz smiled. "I started to tell you, but I just love it when you figure out things by yourselves." "Miss Frizzle,"